many times in life have people looked at us and judged us, heard our stories, and already judged us before we've even opened our mouths? So often this happens to us. And I know it's happened to me too many times in my life, where people judge me by just my appearance or just who they think I am. Today, we're going to be talking to somebody who many times people judge him by, their appearance or the things that he said. But when you hear about his story and find out about who he truly is and what he's been through, your mouth will drop. Good morning, Nicole, and thank you so much for joining us today. And let's get real. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I want to point out a sweater today, which means it's sweater weather, which is pretty amazing because it's already getting cold here in South Carolina. I'm not used to this kind of weather. I'm cold when it's about, in Arizona, if it dropped to below 80, we were freezing. So today was 50 outside. So I'm going to have to transfer everything that I've got into a cooler climate. But other than that, I'm doing great. And I'm really excited about our guest today. I have had the privilege of talking to him one-on-one, and I was absolutely blown away by his knowledge, his wisdom. And I was so happy when he agreed to come on our show because I think he can teach people a lot. And I love the fact that don't judge people. I've been guilty of it in the past, but I've also been judged. And I think it's almost a common thing to do, as I can remember a few times people telling me, oh gosh, we thought you were really going to be rude to us or you weren't very nice. And Glenda, I'm the nicest person you'll ever meet.
So. Absolutely. I know you are. I love you. And yes, I've been judged. I've been judged through who I am too. And my family has been always judged. Yes. And it saddens me. I think that's the word that I use, is because, until you really get to know somebody, and we all do it, you have 2 seconds basically to make your first opinion.
Oh my gosh, that's like this. That's not right. Even time to really formulate anything in your brain, much less formulate a person.
Right. So please introduce our guest today.
I would love to. And this is a man of many talents. He's a writer, he's an artist, a musician, wow. And he's also a speaker. But his story didn't start that way. And after a life of abuse, lack of self-worth, he has found God and he has found his voice. And I will say that when you find your voice, you've usually found your calling. You've usually found your calling, and he is using his voice to help others. So I'm really excited to welcome him to the stage. His name is Micah Yott, and I can't wait to start talking to him.
Welcome, Micah, and thank you so much for joining us today. We are honored to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We love it. And yes, I did my own bit of research on you, and I saw that you have many, many talents, and I love that. And I always honor people for being able to find their talents and using it, because, we are all special in our own ways, but sometimes it takes a bit of digging to find your own talents. And I'm sure, like most of us, life didn't start out that way for you, that you realize, boom, oh, wow, I'm a singer, I'm an artist, So please share with us the beginnings of how your life sort of started out. Let's begin there.
All right. Well, when I was a child, I was very quiet, very timid. I would observe everybody around me instead of really interacting much. I would play by myself a lot outside and, wander around. I liked walking through the woods. That was one of my favorite things to do. I wasn't really too outgoing as a child, but I loved to draw and paint. So that was something I would always do. As I grew up, I slowly became a little bit more social in my teens, started kind of venturing out. I think it was just hormones really pushing me to go and be social, find a girlfriend type of thing. But I wasn't really equipped for that type of thing, socializing, because I was still learning how to be a person, really. And I was learning through observation, trial and error. I would really focus on just creating with my time, whether it was movies. I would make little movies and skits, or I would paint and draw. I really liked drawing a lot. Um, the struggles in the youth for me was really just trying to find a place to fit in. I was always trying to look for the group of people that would just be kind to me and accept me. So I would naturally just be open to anybody, uh, any type of group. And when it comes to that type of acceptance that you're looking for, it usually comes with a lot of abuse, because you will take anything just to be a part of a group. So growing up, I was exposed to a lot of abuse in my family, with my friends and relationships, because I thought it was just par for the course. If I wanted to be connected with people, I had to tolerate an unlimited amount of abuse. Unfortunately, that naivety caused me to experience a lot of trauma that I was, in the moment, I wasn't aware of until I got older and I started learning about childhood trauma.
So you
And
thought that abuse was more of that's the way that families are supposed to be, how you're supposed to be treated?
yeah, I thought everything was normal. So I would expect it in relationships. A lot of the relationships I've had, there were patterns
Yes.
that would pop up. So it was only recently that I learned that I was repeating these patterns from my childhood because of an acceptable amount of self-love, which was very little. And I think that comes from just exposure, not really understanding that we are entitled to self-love, boundaries.
But what was the point where something connected and saying, this isn't normal, this isn't the way life's supposed to be?
It was only after I had my daughter that I would pour my love into her and it would be reciprocated.
Wow.
And I realized that the love from her was what I wanted from everybody, that same amount of reciprocation.
Mm-hmm.
Wow,
And
that's amazing.
it is possible to find that in other people.
Yeah.
You just have to create boundaries, and being a selfless, caregiver most of my life, I didn't really have boundaries. I just give.
Yeah, I know how that feels.
Yeah, and unfortunately, when we are selfless and we are on a path of spirituality and we're healers, for me, I always was drawn to the people that needed healing. And those were some of the most abusive people is the ones that were unhealed, and they had the anger and, the narcissism. Did you find that was true for yourself also?
Yes, 100%. It was if I was naturally drawn to people that needed my love and needed my care, and
Yeah.
unfortunately were unable or didn't have the capacity to reciprocate.
Yeah, and it's very painful. It's very painful when you're in that situation, because you know inside of you that you're trying to help, you're doing your best, and you're just getting shot down at every turn. And for me, I don't know if you were this way, but before my eyes were opened and before I had this understanding of things like that, I just felt like, well, why is this person doing this to me? What did I do to them? But you really don't need to do anything to those type of people because they've got that inside of them that's living there. It's nothing you do. It's something that's inside of them. And only till I realized that, that was almost when I realized that freed me to really look around and to understand that not all of this was about me. It was about them. Did you find that also?
I agree. Yeah. And that was the hardest lesson for me was, I think it was part of my hubris that I thought I had the capacity to heal them
Yes.
with knowledge of trauma and behavioral patterns and just pouring love into somebody. Unfortunately, it wasn't the case.
But did you at any point during those years feel that you were worthy of even loving yourself?
No, I learned either through societal influence or through family that I had to earn love.
So you couldn't give it to yourself because of just the person that you were, just because you were a kind-hearted, understanding. You couldn't give it just to yourself. Never mind everybody else, but you.
Yeah. I would focus more on others than myself. And my love language is service. So I would do everything I could for other people. I wouldn't expect anything in return. I would be pleasantly surprised if they did something and feel love. But that was pretty much it. It was just giving.
So it must have been a shock that you have this baby. And well, let's go step back one more before. So you have a woman that you find that you had the baby with. Was there love in that relationship?
Absolutely. I think what happens is in relationships, you have a lot of optimism in the beginning and a lot of love and attraction. And when life starts chipping away and unresolved conflict and trauma starts rearing its head, I think that really deteriorates the relationship enough to where it really makes the person or both people raw to the point of really who they are rather than who they project. And that is the determining factor whether or not they're going to push through and get beyond the difficult, or are they going to give in to destructive pattern behaviors, or behavioral patterns, and simply self-destruct.
But I think part of that from, because I understand that very much so, and I realize because of, relationships that I have been in, and same thing, it starts out wonderful and you're all in hope, and, you just see the rose-colored glasses are on and you only see things. But what I started to realize is those people that when things turn around and you really see who those people are, it's also what they have learned in their background. So it's like, like for me, when I saw that, and before my children were, it was like, you realize that who you are is, our first beginning of our life. It's always about what our parents have taught us. Have they taught us to love? Have they taught us to be mean? And like, what's going on in the world with the anger, with the hatred, that starts in the home. We have to look at where things starts, and it's we get to a point, like I believe that some of us are old souls, and sometimes there's something inside of us that tells us like, no, that's not right. And some of us souls or old souls, we have that internal voice that starts to sway us away and teach us some right. And when we go to, like I was, to always look out and searching for, there is understanding, there is kindness, there is loving individuals. And so, we begin with, when you have that child like you did, that baby, that beautiful human being that comes into your arms and has nothing that it can give you but those gurgles and those smiles and those beauty, like, to me, that's just pure beauty. um, it either creates one thing out of you or it creates the other. And so obviously you saw a different road when you had your daughter. And so what was your determination? How did you see that? Like, at that point, there must have been a shift in you that you wanted to create that love.
Yes, absolutely. It was as if a whole nother person was born right alongside the baby. And when I was holding her, I realized I'm not the same person. And it was as if I have a new dedication in my life, or a new mission, purpose. And it was to protect and to serve just this being and create a whole new perception on life with her and for her. So I dedicated all of my efforts and tolerated all of the struggles simply because she gave me that love that I was looking for.
So that shift, that was the start of your shift.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. And it is amazing what those little creatures will do, and that's why I don't understand how a parent, like you say, the abuse from the parents, I don't understand how that happens. But I also know, talking to some, people, that they continue what they learned from their parents, whether it's abuse, whether it's verbal or physical. And I'm just wondering, how were you able to stop that family trauma, and why can some people do it and why some people refuse to do it? Do you have any clarity on why that happens?
Yeah. I often ask that same question. How do we stop the cycle? And the only way I can measure it back to the exact moment, and it was this moment when she was about 2 years old. And when you're about that age, you're starting to really become aware of your environment and your relationships.
True.
And I could see it in her eyes when there would be a moment of chaos between her mother and I. And I would do my best to stay calm and mitigate the situation so that it wasn't exposing her to the same type of chaos I was exposed to, because that's essentially what I was trying to avoid. And when I saw it in her eyes that she recognized, it was painful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I think for me, one of the things that was my biggest drive with my kids is I wanted to protect them. For me, it was just like the minute you said they're put in your arms, you want to protect them, whether that's from, abuse from anyone, whether it's through grade school, whatever. And that really, I've always been baffled by these parents that just they fight, they argue, they create that chaos, and they have no respect for that little person, seeing it. And so, did your ex have that respect at all, or was that just on your end?
That's a good question. I often try to give people the benefit of the doubt, but I also make the mistake of projecting. I project a lot of my own onto other people as if they are the same way. So it's hard for me to determine if she has that respect. Maybe in the retrospect, she has remorse. I don't know. In the moment, there's no respect for anybody. There's just emotion.
But we can only do, the whole thing of especially raising a child. And I learned that way. And I learned because it was the hard way of going when you're going through a divorce and you don't have your child around you 24/7 because, according to the laws, each parent has to be awarded their time. And it used to make me cringe of some of the things that my kids, what would happen during the time. And it was like, you have to learn that you have to release that if they're not in physical harm. And that's number one key of realizing that you can only do for your child what you have control of. So you make sure that when your child is in your presence, you teach them the right from wrong. You teach them to give them a voice, to talk, and to be, especially if they're old enough to be able to talk, and that to give them so that they feel, every child needs to feel the love, the understanding, the having compassion and all of those things. But sometimes it's really hard within us. So as your child was starting to grow up and you had that time of you time with your little girl, would you be teaching her the important aspects of life, of love and understanding? And what things did you go about so that you could make a difference in her life?
The first thing that I focused on was just spending as much positive time with her. So we have that filled cup, I guess, of love. And just having fun, focusing on fun. Because I feel like we put so much pressure on kids. The first 5 years of their life should really just be focused, in my opinion, of just being a person, having fun and being a person to explore life. So I do focus on reassuring her and making sure that she speaks up when it's uncomfortable, because I can tell when she's holding back. So I make sure to really put her on the spot and say, no, don't make yourself small. Express yourself. And she has really developed into quite an amazing person.
How old is she now?
She's
Sorry, we lost you for a second. How old is she?
She's 6 years old.
Beautiful.
Wow.
So she's beginning to be a little lady.
She is.
Yeah.
So how did that change you into, sorry, Nicole, I just saw.
No. I was just wondering, because he had talked about his parents, and when you have a grandchild, that's kind of a delicate balance right there of how do you, with the time spent with them, how do you manage that?
Yeah. Balance is the key. What you said, it's very delicate. It's, in my opinion, you have to allow a little bit of leeway with the grandparents to have their own impression on the child, even if it's contradictory to mine. I feel like if I step in between them and create some sort of negative association or some sort of control, it's really not allowing that natural relationship to develop. So there has been a lot of conversation between me and my parents when it comes to my daughter, and certain boundaries and certain expectations. But I've really let go of a lot of the reins, especially with her, just to kind of allow her to develop that relationship with them and make her own opinion, her
I love
own.
that. Good for you. And that's really the hardest thing because, like I said, you don't always have control over that, but making sure that you're firm on, your relationship with your parents, that you've been taught right from wrong now.
Yeah.
So how did all of this change your life of now starting to find your key gifts, your natural talents?
Well, that's interesting that because you've flattered me with talents and your compliments. I'm not quite used to that stuff, so it's interesting to hear. And when somebody gives me that perspective that it's like a talent or a skill, I don't really see it as such. So it's hard for me to perceive it as like I have a skill or I have a talent. I have things that I enjoy and I enjoy spending time on and I enjoy creating. When it happened, I would say it was on a moment or in a moment where I was really at my lowest point and I was failing in my relationship with my ex-wife, and I wanted to fix it, but I had no power in fixing it. And I was getting to that point where I wanted to end my life because of the lack of self-worth and the depression. And my daughter saved me from that by simply just asking me to play. She just came into the room one morning when I was sitting on the bed reflecting, and she just asked me to play with her. And something in me that I can only describe as it lifted out of me. And I always refer to it as the hand of God. The hand of God lifted something out of me, and it took all of that weight in that moment. And after that, I've just been having the perception on life that I need to help others. I need to create and I need to help others. And I need to stop focusing on what I don't have.
You're speaking my language.
Yeah. What
Too
a
many
profound
times.
statement, too,
Yeah.
that
Wow.
when you think of a little girl in her innocence that just wants to play, and who does she come to? You. What a gift that is. What an absolute gift in that moment. That little one provided you a reason to be here.
Yeah.
And I always believe in my heart that we never know who our teachers are. So at that moment or through her existence, she's turned into being your teacher.
She has.
And, we have to really open our eyes and our hearts to realize that our teachers are not who we think that they can be. They're not somebody who's 10 years older. They're not somebody who's maybe a millionaire. It's sometimes the most innocent beings, hence your daughter, turns into being your teacher in your life.
Yeah. She
Taking
was my
you,
angel.
yeah.
Wow.
No, she is your angel. And I'm going to step back for a second, because when you said to me said to us just a moment ago that you had a hard time accepting a compliment, and if you said you just like to create, I'm going to remind you something, because that just hit a chord in me, and I feel it needs to be addressed. That there's so many people in this world that don't want to be creating. Creation is a magnificence in the world. It's building, it's beyond, to me, it's like a flower coming out and growing and opening up. Not everybody wants to create. There's a lot of people out there who want to destroy. So when I hear somebody saying, I just want to create, I just want to do my art, to me, that art brings love into the world. brings openness. So I want you to take it into your own heart of when I say to somebody, and I'm telling you of when I hear such a beautiful statement of I just want to create, I want to thank you, because what our world needs more of is the love, is the creation, is the sharing of oneself of love and understanding. And that is really, really important. And you should be taking that deep in your heart, because it is totally meant that we should feel that grace. And please feel the grace in your heart of what I'm giving to you. It is meant so that you can spread that more, because that is a talent in itself.
Thank you. Thank you.
And it's so needed right now. It's I always look at things from a perspective of you came here at a certain time with a mission for a reason. And this is a time of just immense turmoil all over the world. And when you can bring that perspective that you have right in this moment of this now, I think that's so admirable, because we get a choice. We get to choose. Do we want to be depressed? Do we want to be negative? And you're choosing just the opposite. So Glenda, you spoke that so eloquently.
And I just want to say that, like you're now having your own, we learn from what we've been through, but we also learn that we need to teach. And I believe that the most important job that we can ever have in our lives is being a parent. And because I have two children of my own, now are adults, but I saw through all the years how my children watched me, how I reacted, how I did things all through my life, and still till today. And when we can teach them that we take the good side of life, the learning to love instead of hate, to be kind instead of mean, when we can show them that we do it by our own ways, because you know what? It's, people see who you are, and you show you who you are through your actions. And now you're taking that. So let's talk now about what you are actually doing, so that we can touch on what you are creating for others to create that love and kindness in your own ways. What are you doing now to teach?
Well, so far this year, I've written a film that I've always wanted to write a film, but I didn't want it to be just any film. I wanted it to be something that would inspire people, especially young people. So I created a film that is a superhero origin story, and I want the superhero to inspire people, inspire them to release the silent scream that's inside of them.
Wow.
So its title is The Silent Scream. It's a sci-fi movie, but I put a lot of my own story into it. So it's very personal. And that really just focuses on overcoming trauma in a nutshell. Just to help people see that there's multiple perspectives when it comes to trauma. It's not just simply cut and dry. So that's the first thing that I did. I also wrote down a very specific process of how I transmute my own trauma into something productive and constructive. And I released that for free in a little digital book, an ebook. I also shared a little bit about my history and my experience. But I wanted to give my process away to maybe teach people how to transmute their own trauma into something constructive and positive, and just shift their mindset.
Love that.
I'm working on a way of developing a lesson plan to teach people how, step by step, how to create something that I've created, which is a digital graphic novel that's also an audiobook. Essentially, it's a audio movie, but it's without the film. So it's a theater, audio theater.
Wow.
And I wanted to create a lesson plan so that I could teach other people how to do the exact same thing if they had no knowledge. So I'm working on that right now. I've also created a website that is a social media website that is designed with education and connection. It is specifically for education and connection with artists and educators, but it runs as if it's a church. It's a nonprofit, so it runs entirely on donations. My goal there is to reform the education system, the plan that we will eventually make it into a brick and mortar, so it'll be a physical place. But for right now, it's just online. And this prototype that I've designed, it's to really create a whole new perception on education and how we learn.
So important.
So the inspiration there was because of my experience in a very small school growing up. You do get a lot more personal attention from teachers when you have small classrooms.
Right.
Unfortunately, the public school system has been standardized for so long that people like myself get overlooked very easily if they're quiet and they need hands-on learning rather than regurgitation. So I designed this prototype to focus more on connection. So the teacher is not just sitting there speaking. It gives the opportunity for the guests to also share their knowledge and add their insight to whatever is being discussed, whether it's problem solving or just education. It really has become something that is more of like a tool to combat trauma through education, but also expose artists that normally wouldn't be exposed. They wouldn't have the platform or the funding, because I feel educators and artists are completely unfavored in our society, especially financially.
Yeah.
So I designed this church through donations to funnel all donations into life insurance just for the artists and the educators, so they all equally share these donations in their life insurance policy. That way,
Why life insurance?
one, the government can't tax it,
Okay.
and two, it grows exponentially. So at some point, it would give them generational wealth, which artists and educators would never see in a regular setting.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's there's nothing like it that I've ever heard of. So where did that idea come from? Is it a download? Was it just something you felt was missing? And I totally agree with you about the schooling. That to me is just indoctrination. It's not schooling.
Yeah,
but it's brilliant. See, now I'm even more impressed with you. I'm like, my God, are you kidding me? We need to have another one-on-one. This is great. So how did you come up with that?
Well, I wanted a facility. I've always wanted a gym facility to be a part of that not only focused on physical health, but emotional health.
So important.
And there's so many aspects of emotional health and how to achieve healing, sound healing, exposure to Desensitization is another thing that helps. Consulting, group therapy, just talking, connecting with people. Physical activity, like martial arts, is one of the most beneficial things a person can do when it comes to emotional health. Most
Well,
people would associate martial arts with just the physical activity, but
the discipline.
it's the discipline and the self-worth that you learn through martial arts, the value that you get out of it. It carries on into every aspect of life. So I want to create something like that, a facility that not only focuses on the physical, but the emotional and the trauma healing, the group connection, and then some way to measure it, which is very difficult. It's very difficult to measure healing because
true.
it's all subjective. But I believe there is ways to measure the way the mind is being altered slowly by documenting the changes. So you can have physical proof that your mind is changing through healing.
And I guess you can also see it by how much we learn to, our own self-worth, what we feel that we are worthy of, because that's what I find the saddest things of, even in a school where, you've got that teacher at the front lecturing and, emotions never come part of. And, if there's very few teachers, and I know because I've gone through, like I said, I have 2 children that are adults now, and I've had full educations, universities, and all the rest of it. But, it was through being, and not all kids have, like, I was very much a very involved parent who was very involved in the schools system because my children through the years suffered because of a divorce. And I always felt it was an important factor that their teachers needed to know that what they were going through so they could understand to have some compassion when they weren't capable of coping through the times. But what teachers for most points don't see the children, they're so concerned with the forcing of what they need to learn instead of understanding what they might be going through. So that why can't they learn? Same as you walk down the street and you smile at somebody and you say good morning to someone, and you might not see anything, but you might not realize that smile could actually create something in them that gives them that feeling that somebody's making them feel just a little bit better. And that little bit better could change somebody's life. And because you don't know, maybe that person was thinking of turning around. Maybe that person was thinking of turning around and killing themselves that day, but maybe that smile could have changed everything in them. So we need to really be aware of mental health because it is everything in our lives, whether even going to the gym or going to a martial arts or anything. If you're not mentally strong to just even want to get that, even the foot out the door to go for a walk, if you're very depressed, you're not going to want to go outside for that walk. So mental health, in my opinion, is the start of everything in life. And teachers, for the most part, we've got some great ones, but unfortunately, we've got some really poor ones out there. And people, this type of thing of what you're talking about can change society.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and Mike, I'm curious, as you looked at our schools now and how they're structured and the things they teach and how you have to sit at a desk, you have to raise your hand to go to the bathroom. Was that part of what you realized, that it's more maybe conditioning? They're not looking at them as a human. They're just looking as something in front of them that they've got to, they've got their plans out. They have to teach this, they have to do it this way. And so there's no real flexibility anymore. Now, for me, if my kids were back in school and I was seeing what I'm seeing, I would not have allowed them to go to public school. But these little kids, even as they're older, they're individuals with individual needs. Little kids get antsy at a desk. Little kids, and we've just grouped them into a herd. So it's almost like a herd mentality anymore. Is that what you saw to want to bring about change?
Yeah, in my experience growing up, I was on my own a lot, neglected a lot. So I had a lot of freedom to do what I wanted, learn as I wanted, which was hands-on mostly. And sitting in the classroom was like torture to me. It was every day. I would only go the minimal amount I had to go in order to pass. I would only do the minimal amount of work in order to get through it.
Yeah.
Because I just wanted to be done with it. That was my experience with education. And I don't see the point of putting children through something like that, when the only reprieve I had from that torture was art, the art class. I would spend as much time as I could inside the art class because it was the only chance I had to kind of let myself be myself. And I want to break the system, essentially. I know it's not anarchy. I'm not looking for chaos. I'm looking to break the system and rebuild it.
Yeah.
And how do we go about that? Sorry.
Right.
We have to change our perception. We have to forget and unlearn what we think is correct, the right way, because it's the only way we've done it. We have to start thinking that everything we know is a lie. And that is the hardest thing to accept, that your whole world is a lie. And once you accept that, you start to see what the truth is and what's real.
And it's eye-opening, isn't it?
Very much so.
Very much eye-opening. So with that, is your daughter in a public school right now, or do you have her someplace where she can learn based on herself?
Yeah, we do homeschooling.
I love that. I love that. And as a boy in school, they say, I've read these statistics of, it's so hard for a little boy to sit still for all those hours. They should be out playing. They should be out running. They're energetic. They want to do these things. But instead, we give it a name and call it, ADHD, and we give them a drug. What do you think about that?
I could have easily succumbed to that diagnosis. Unfortunately, a lot of kids, they do get drugged up and over-medicated and turned into little zombies. Luckily for me, I wasn't, because of the neglect and me being quiet. So I kind of slid under the radar. I feel that the pharmaceutical industry is part of the lie.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Part of the machine that we are a part of to keep us at our desk, raising our hands.
Yeah.
And we need to break this machine.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that you slipped under the radar because of who you were, the quietness, when in fact that actually allowed you this path that you're on right now. Had it not happened the way it did, you wouldn't have had this brilliance within you to bring forth change with what you're doing. So in retrospect, I'm not going to say it was a blessing, but at least you weren't one of those that was targeted and said, oh, he can or can't do this, let's give him a pill.
Yeah. And I worked for a long time in the mental health field, caring for the developmentally disabled. So I have firsthand experience on how over-medication is so It's so prevalent.
Yeah.
Throwing some type of medication at the problem and just being like, okay, well, that'll fix it for a little while until we need to raise the dosage, and then we'll just raise the dosage, or we'll go to a harder drug.
I agree. I've seen it happen firsthand. I too have worked a lot in that part of the world and have watched how doctors have over medicated. I have siblings that are mentally challenged, and I've watched how when they react to things and society looks at it that it's wrong, and they just feel, and I've been a very strong advocate against it, because they just, oh, we'll just prescribe them this will settle them down. And what they don't realize is people that are screaming out, that's their way, and many times how they're voicing themselves as saying something's wrong, and they have no other way but to react in such, sometimes in such really hard ways, like being, over the top, because that's their only way of communicating. And yet society wants to bring them and squash them down so they won't be, so nobody else will be disturbed by it, according to, and it's what the pharmacy does, because it's all to do with the money, of building their own wallets.
That's it.
Yeah, and it's very sad.
Yeah, so we need to change it.
Yeah, and we need to have more people like you that is speaking out and saying that this isn't the way you do things like that. When you have a child and who is a child who can't seem to sit, then find a way that she can, or he can, get that energy out to find even their talents. Like, I love the fact of, you found your talents in the art field. And I love the specialty schools that are opening nowadays, that children can go out, and if they're actors, if they love music, whatever ways they can, that they're going right through school, using their talents, the things that they love. And that's what we should be doing, because then we're bringing the talents out, or we're bringing the children into what they need in their lives, so that they can blossom instead of being pushed down.
I agree.
That's very powerful, Glenda. It's what the schooling and what the teachings are is they don't individualize them, they group them, and that's so unfair.
Yeah,
so unfair.
And I've seen that firsthand. I saw that with my own children, and that's why I became a very big advocate of making sure I was, I wasn't totally loved by teachers, because it was like, here she comes again.
It's her. But we need more parents like that. Why are we just accepting what we know is wrong for our children?
Right.
Why?
And shouldn't our children are our future. They're the future of our world. And we need to show the like I say, we need to show the talents. We need to show the creations, because those are the positive forms in life. We're not all meant to be doctors and lawyers. And look, my son's a lawyer, but I'm not saying that. He made that decision when he saw the door opening and saw something that it enticed him inside. There was something that spoke out to him and said that, but not everybody is that way. And some people, their talents might be to be a plumber, or to be an artist, or to be a singer or a dancer. And that's what our world needs, so that the talents come out. And I congratulate you for that. That's what our world needs more of. And I'm hoping that more people can see this. Now we're coming to the end of our time. And like I say, it's just, there's never enough time.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, first of all, you have so much incredible knowledge, and you've shared with us so many things. If somebody is feeling that they haven't been heard, their voice has been pushed down. What golden nugget, what can you suggest to somebody that what they can do to step out so they can start to shine in their own ways?
The first thing I would say is to breathe. Breathe with intention. Do it as much as you need to until you start to feel it. And once you feel it, try to hold on to it. Once you find your passion, that's really what it is. It's whatever makes you feel passionate about life. Follow it, because that's what's going to make you successful.
How do you discover in your own way, let's turn it the other way. What would you define passion as?
That's a good question. I like to picture it as a fire inside of me. There's a fire, and everybody has a little fire, just a little one. And every time you achieve another step in the direction of your passion, the fire gets a little bit bigger.
Wow. Wow. Beautiful. Nicole, what little wisdom can you share with us from today?
Well, conversations like this really, really spark me, because sometimes I lay low with opinions because not everybody gets me and not everybody knows what I know. And so I'm kind of middle of the road with some things, but this one sparks me today. And I think the most important thing is everyone from, the time you're born, you come in with certain things, with certain gifts, with a certain path. Now, sometimes we get off that path and sometimes we merge into someone else's lane and it's not really our own. But what I think now that I've done so much research and I myself have grown inside, I think that I would tell people, don't let anyone else tell you who you are or what you should be. And now more than anything, instead of using brain power, I use my mind to connect with a higher source. And I feel with my heart what's right or wrong, because that is and always will be one of our truth centers, our gut basically for safety, but our heart for knowledge and wisdom. And for me, I can feel now just like that, if it's right or wrong, if it's a lie or if it's the truth. And the more we get to know ourselves and the more people tell you not to do this, go inside. Everything is inside of yourself. Your wisdom, your knowledge, your path, your loves, your dislikes. And so when you aren't sure of what you're doing is right or wrong, feel your way through it.
Beautiful. I love that. And I agree. Yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. It was an absolute pleasure. And yes, you touched my heart.
Thank you.
You touched my soul. And I believe in everything that you are doing. And I am here to tell you that, I would love to help you on your journey, because you are talking my language. You're talking of the journey that I set out to help others to reach, to become different. In life, it's very funny. I grew up where my family was very different than the majority of families out there. And people looked down on us because we were different. Today, I want to tell you that it is really important to be different, to listen to those who are different, because they teach us more than what we'll ever know in our lives. Like Nicole said, it's time to touch your soul to understand who you really are, and to speak out for what you believe, because that's the way our world should be run. I'm sending love and light out to you all. Thank you all for joining us today. Please remember to share us, because there's other people that need to learn this. Too many people have been brought up with no self-worth, with no love, no understanding. Reach out today to any of us. If you feel that you have not been heard, if you feel that you're not being understood, it's time to not sit back and accept it, but to start moving forward and become that soul, and let your wisdom be heard. Thank you all.